Josh. It's we're back in the studios.
Here we are.
It's Ultra Life Today, and we are excited to have another segment going on with our esteemed guest from last month. Guess who it is?
It's Ed Fletcher, and I can't tell you, Adam, how excited I am to learn more about herbs and the history of herbs and what they can do for us today. It's cool.
You know, we had a great discussion last time.
Yep.
Do you remember what it was about?
Oh, I do. We talked about the identity of herbs and how much counterfeiting is taking place in the world, and then we moved into talking a bit about golden seal.
It was golden seal.
Yeah,
That's
ding,
right.
Ding, ding, ding,
Ding, ding.
Do I get a free bottle of an Ultra product?
You get another Ultra. Yeah, here we go. So, well, Ed's going to join us here. Hey, Ed, how are you?
I'm great today. How are you guys?
Oh my gosh, we should all be out there with you.
I was going to say, it looks a lot more fun where you are, Ed, than where we are. I can hear birds chirping, and looks like you're catching a little sun. That's great.
It's springtime here in the Appalachian Mountains, so it's an exciting time.
So what part of the U.S. are you in, Ed?
I'm in northwestern North Carolina.
Oh, beautiful.
In about 4,200 feet. So as you can see, we actually don't have leaves. All the leaves are out on our trees, just starting to come out. So a lot of the spring ephemeral bloomers, the herbaceous perennials, are just blooming now. It's an exciting time.
Oh.
You North Carolinians have the coolest accent.
Thank you.
I met a young man one time from North Carolina. He came down here, and a bunch of us from church kind of put him up. He was just kind of hitchhiking through town, and I just loved listening to him talk. It's such a different inflection and sound than it is in any other state.
Yeah, there's a lot of Scotch-Irish here.
Okay.
What most of my heritage is. So yes, you're right. It is unique.
So Ed, last time we talked about golden seal and some counterfeiting and some of the issues there. I think you astonished our listeners by how long it takes to grow golden seal.
Right.
And we had a bunch of people that asked questions about it. But I don't want to linger on golden seal because I think we murdered that plant a little bit. What we thought we would talk about a different botanical this week.
Sure.
And we had mentioned black cohosh. Is that still something?
Oh yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the history of that herb and why it's become so important in natural medicine.
Well, it's been utilized. I think it was in the U.S. Pharmacopoeia probably back in 1930, sometime in there, and it's still in there. It's mainly known for helping women through hot flashes through the hormonal stages of life and everything. What's interesting, it's one of the few botanicals that have crossed over into the drug arena. In other words, there's companies in Germany that actually grow it, buy it, they grow it, they produce it, and they sell it. And the name of the product is Remifemin. I believe it's produced by Schwappe and Brumer. It may have changed company names now, but it's quite interesting. It's got a long history. It grows here in the eastern U.S. and the mountains of the United States, up into southern parts of Canada a little bit. But it's mainly a forest grown and much similar to the woods growing right behind me here. We actually have some growing out there. If we have time, maybe we can venture out and see some of it. But it's
that would be great.
Many generations, really good safety, and the ID is very easy. So it's not one that's often adulterated accidentally, although there is some economic adulteration, as we spoke about last week. But it's a really good, well-established, long-term use herb.
Yeah. Ed, you said something that triggered something in me. Years ago, I had some clients in one of my business that were missionaries, and they spent a ton of time in Germany. And they would say, Josh, when we walk into a pharmacy in Germany, the drugs are the herbs. I was like, wait a minute, what? And so that's just kind of fascinating to me. And then you mentioned black cohosh being in the pharmacopoeia. Was there just a shift at some point in time? Because I remember the pharmacopoeia used to basically be plants, and then all of a sudden, poof, that changed. What happened there?
Well,
well,
I'm sorry. I mean, I was telling Adam this last week. I believe the ratio is like 70 to 75% of all pharmaceutical drugs are plant-based. In other words, they found out the constituent of the particular plant that they consider to be the active constituent.
Right.
And you can't patent a plant to make a lot of money on it, but you can patent a constituent. So they would take that constituent into a lab, and
Synthesize it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's the extraction purification thing,
Yeah.
and University of Mississippi is probably one of the culprits in this, right?
Yeah.
Because as you know, they have the natural medicine center there, but the whole idea was, well, let's figure out where the active ingredient is so that we can standard. The whole idea was not to purify it out, but to standardize the botanical ingredient to that active ingredient.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you can patent it and mark it up tremendously. So that's unfortunately, and that started happening in the I'd say the early 40s into the early 60s, they started doing that. But you're exactly right. Most other countries around the world, majority of other countries around the world, they go to the drug. In Germany, you can get reimbursed for your drug prescription.
You mean for buying a natural medicine?
What a novel idea.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's no
difference really. I mean, it's a botanical. It's
right.
We have these. We talked about this before. We have these arbitrary definitions between a drug and a botanical, and the difference being the name.
Yeah.
Well, and potentially side effects.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Botanicals have side effects too.
They do.
They definitely you can name your botanical. You overdo it, you're going to get some toxic overdose.
Sure. I'm just gonna compare the insert of a drug to the botanical, and then I'm going to say, now look at this list of unpronounceable conditions.
You caught me in a brain moment here, Josh.
A botanical is like an allergic reaction,
that's true.
Golden seal, if it's a member of the, something, if you have hay fevers or something, but you just stop taking it, it goes away. It doesn't cause long-term residual effects, generally speaking.
So do we know what the mechanism of action is for black cohosh?
Well, I know the active constituents. When we grow and we produce and sell black cohosh, they're looking for the glycosides. The triterpene glycosides is what in other words, if I get a PO and a spec sheet from one of my customers, they usually have a certain level of triterpene glycosides that they need in the root. So that's the active constituent that my customers are looking for.
Interesting. And so does black cohosh have the same kind of harvest issues that golden seal has? Is it a long?
No, it's much shorter. It's only 4 years.
Only 4 years. Well, you're out there, Ed. Could you show us black cohosh in its native environment?
Yeah, let's walk out here and see if I can get to it, okay?
Yeah.
You see the tall plant right here?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this will give you a reference of the size of the plant, the size of the leaf in my hands. It's pretty unique. Now, they haven't bloomed yet. Let's see if I can find one that's starting to bloom. Here's a bloom just beginning to form on this one. Can you see that little green?
Yep.
Yeah.
So in about 3 weeks, it's going to be it'll grow up about 3 feet above the foliage. The foliage will stay right here, and the bloom stalk shoots up above there, and it's a beautiful white spire bloom. It's just very unique, very beautiful bloom. So it's a spot in the woods.
So I've got a question for you. When I hear about herbs and I look on the back of a bottle, I'll see something that will say root, and then stem, and then leaf, aerial part. What's going on there when they talk about utilizing different portions of the plant? What's up with that?
Well, it is very specific. As a matter of fact, if you sell a product as a dietary supplement and the bottle says black cohosh root on there, actually, if there is leaf and stem in there, that's considered an adulterant. You have to be that specific.
Oh, interesting.
But mainly, as far as what is utilized, what part of the plant is utilized, I mean, the active constituents in a plant are translocated from the roots to the herb different times of year through the vascular system. I don't know how deep you want to get into that, but it's basically...
but it makes sense. It's kind of like, at its if it's annual especially, right? So it'll concentrate all of the summer stuff in the leaves, exactly. And then when it's ending its life cycle, it might it'll go down, and all the nutrients will go down into the rootstock.
And that's where most plants, that's when they harvest them in the fall. They let them grow through the summer, and then all the constituents are translocated again through the vascular system back into the roots. and that's when your triterpene glycosides are highest in the roots.
Interesting.
So would you be kind enough to bust a myth for me? Now that I've finally met somebody that probably knows this answer, I've heard different people talk about harvesting at unusual times, like when there's full moons and different things like that. Tell me what's up with that.
Well, yes, obviously the moon affects everything, because even in the Bible it talks about being a lunatic and refers to the lunar, how it affects us and our body flows and everything. We know that. So yes, we plant by the signs as much as we can, but sometimes you have to make hay while the sun shines. So if we're harvesting a crop and it's maybe not a good day, we just have to go ahead and harvest. But I'm sure in a homeopathic level where you're only doing small quantities,
right?
You can abide by that. I feel like it will definitely help support the quality, the quantity, and the constituents, I'm sure, Josh.
Well, that's good to know, because I've actually seen some companies that do small batches and they say, we specifically harvest at this time, and it boosts the actual potency.
You're right.
So,
no, there are specific times. If I'm harvesting an herb of a plant, I know at what point, like echinacea, we've very studied that extensively. I know what level of the bloom, the stage of the growth, that the total phenols are the highest. So there is a lot to that to know when to harvest.
Wow. So Adam, you and I heard a black cohosh story right here in our own Ultra Botanica corporate building the other day. I'm not going to mention the name, but Adam brought up black cohosh, Ed, and said we were going to do an interview with you again. And this lady just spoke up and said, I took that during menopause and it helped me with night sweats and sleeping. And it was really interesting. I mean, she just piped up and said, it works.
It changed my life. Yeah, it changed not my life, her life. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you know who the biggest customers of black cohosh are?
No.
Men.
What?
Oh, and now are we going to get into some kind of interesting thing about male stuff here? What goes on with men that take black cohosh?
No. Men buy it and give it to them.
Give it to their wives.
I love that. Oh, I love it.
Oh, yeah. They're buying themselves some peace of mind. It's one of the best antipsychotic medications in the world. It helps, right? It helps the men become antipsychotic.
Well,
I don't know if I just said that.
Yeah, I've got a funny story about that, Adam. We, in one of my former companies, a dear friend of yours and mine, Jennifer, out at the lab there in Lawton, was making a product for us that was a topical cream that was helping men that were having ED issues. Yeah. And I was giving it to these men in my prayer group that were all a bunch older than me, and their wives were like, stop giving that to them. It was funny.
They don't like being chased around the table.
Exactly. Especially when they're at retirement age.
Yeah. I didn't want to regress to last week, but now that I'm out here, I thought I'd show you what golden seal looks like.
Oh, that would be great.
And we're going to take a quick break here, Ed, and we're going to be right back with you. And in this segment, we are Ultra Life Today. I'm here with Adam Payne. I'm Josh Bellew, and Ed Fletcher is with us, schooling us on herbs. It's quite fun. We'll be back in a moment.
Our mission is to take nature's most beloved botanicals and enhance them with our liquid protein scaffold technology. This helps it reach your cells faster and better. With exponentially enhanced bioavailability, you'll feel better every day. Ultra Botanica, the feel-good curcumin.
Hey, thanks for joining us at Ultra Life Today. We're here in the Ultra Botanica Studios in Oklahoma City. I'm sitting next to Adam Payne, the CEO of Ultra Botanica.
Hey, Josh.
I'm Josh Bellew. Hey, Adam. And we've got Ed Fletcher, this guy that's been growing herbs in his family for generations and has all kinds of cool stories. And he's walking us through an area in the Appalachians, showing us black cohosh today. And we're talking about that, among other things.
Yeah. It's fun having Ed join our broadcast. Let's see if we can get him on here again. Hey, Ed.
Hey, guys. How you doing today?
Good. Glad to see you here again. So you're out in the woods there in the Appalachians. Yeah. So you were going to show us something really interesting.
Well, there it is. Let's see. I give you an idea of the size of the leaf. It's already bloomed, actually. Can you see? It's already bloomed, and this is actually the seeds starting
Oh,
to see
wow.
already.
It looks so small, Ed.
It is. I mean, it's only about, well, it's that tall, about 12 to 14 inches tall. That's about all it does.
How old is that particular plant there?
These plants are about 6 years old.
Wow. So it's 2 years away from its first harvest?
Yeah, yeah. And this is actually this is where we collect all of our seed stock and do our main seed collection to propagate from and grow elsewhere. So we'll leave that in the ground. That's our mother stock, so to speak. So,
Ooh.
yep.
So Ed, how many acres have you planted in under your control right now?
Right now, we've got about 6.5 acres. And most
Sounds
of
like
that's with, under contract with different growers. We're growing some here, and then I have growers around the country that are growing it for us. I work with them.
it doesn't sound like much, but it's probably an incredible amount of golden seal.
It is, yeah. It's when you start. I mean, if you're talking, it's comparable to corn and soybeans, somewhat where you guys are. It's nothing, but for the medicinal world, that's quite a bit of golden seal. Yes.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was thinking about placing a PO for 2030. Would
Yep.
that still be open?
27.
2027.
Exactly right. I
Oh
mean,
my gosh.
I mean, some of these companies that really want material. I mean, golden seal can also be legally wildcrafted, but it's just not as the supply is not as stable as it was in the past. So we're encouraging, and we're getting more and more companies calling us wanting to contract. But yes, you're right. We don't have available material until 2027. We have to plan that far ahead, Adam.
So Ed, let's go back to black cohosh for a second.
Sure.
So what's the dosage of black cohosh, and how quickly could somebody expect it to actually be a benefit to them?
Well, that's a little bit out of my realm because each company depends on the product they make and the strength that they make it in, and they develop their own dosage. So that will really depend. But from my personal experience, my wife,
Yeah.
it took about 7 to 10 days before she started really feeling the hot flashes subside and subdue. And then, she ran out. She's been taking it for a while, and I will tell this story. She ran out for a while because, and she just thought, well, I'll get it sometime, and we forgot about it. And then pretty soon, in a few days, she realized, hey, I got to get some again. My flashes are coming back.
Oh, interesting.
So is the black cohosh typically only used for a specific period of time as a therapeutic, or do people use it for other reasons and take smaller amounts of it throughout the year? Is there anything going on there?
The hormonal and for the short periods are mainly what it's used for, Josh.
Okay.
But I've heard men who have had hormonal problems also take black cohosh to help themselves.
Wow.
Now, are you talking about like testosterone benefits, or are you talking about just in general overall issues?
It was to help with their hormonal issues because men who have hormonals and having to take hormones, they also have the hot flashes and things. A lot of
interesting.
The thyroid issue.
Okay.
Well, it's amazing that who would have? How would somebody have discovered?
Yeah,
black cohosh is like something that they were that was helping their wife or themselves or a loved one with hot flashes.
Right.
You in asking that question, Adam, because I ask that all the time myself, it always makes me think the wisdom of God that was given to people generations and generations and generations ago that's passed on, from person to person to person, because I can't figure out any other way other than God showed them, hey, this is what these are for. It's amazing.
So Ed, how's the supply of black cohosh right now? Is it a pretty open market? Or is it easy to get, or do you have to pre-order this too?
Well, black cohosh is much more abundant in the wild.
Mm-hmm.
It propagates faster, it grows faster, it drops seed and grows. So the majority of the black cohosh still comes from wildcrafted. And it is abundant, but I will say that in the last 2 years, because of the pandemic and a lot of the issues surrounding that, it's caused some pressure on the black cohosh just because the people are not getting out and harvesting enough. I've got orders right now I can't fill, and I won't be able to fill them till this fall when we harvest again. So.
That's interesting. I don't recall in the last Mississippi meeting, was there an adulteration issue with black cohosh?
There anytime that there's a shortage, Adam, I'm sorry to say, but there's an opportunity for economic adulteration. There is a difference. Like I said, accidental adulteration,
Yeah, it makes
may
sense.
get some species mixed up. But the economic adulteration, and again, not to call them out, but it's a known fact that there's a similar species of Actaea. Black cohosh here is Actaea racemosa.
Yeah.
There's a species that grows in China that's called Actaea fotida, and it's very similar, but it has been known to make it into the U.S. market as an adulterant.
Does it have the same benefits
Yes.
as the other one?
Yes, and actually, if someone would do a study and they would file for an NDI, a new dietary ingredient, it has the same actives. They use it in China for that. The problem is they put it in a product over here that does not have that on the label. It has, American black cohosh.
Oh, so they are misrepresenting it, even though it might have the same benefit. They're lying essentially.
It's mislabeling.
Ed, I heard you mention this the last time that we got to talk with you, but our listeners would be very interested. In your opinion, if you walk into an independent health food store or a big health food store chain, national chain, should you gravitate toward those brands that you know have been on the shelf for 30, 40, 50 years? In your opinion, is that the best way to go when you're trying to buy an herb and wanting to make sure it's not adulterated?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay.
Josh. I mean, the companies who've been around for a while, they have a good reputation. They have good SOPs. They have good protocols to screen these botanicals. They know their supply chain. Now, I don't want to say that new startup small companies cannot do the same thing, but you've got to be careful because a lot of companies will try to just jump into the market into a fad. If there's a Dr. Oz or somebody talks about a certain herb, then the demand goes up and the price goes up. Some of these companies will just jump into that and try to make money. But generally speaking, I think I said last time, go to Walmart to buy your socks and other things. My opinion is go to a reputable place to buy something that you're going to put into your body to help. And again, Walmart has some good lines too. But like you said, your local health food store and the brands that have been around for a long time, well established with a good reputation and less reports of anything. Those are the ones I would go to.
Yeah, one of them that I'm actually pretty impressed with, and we actually buy some materials from them, is Now Foods. I know they had a huge problem about a decade or so ago.
Yeah, they kind of had to reinvent themselves, didn't they?
But now my understanding is that they're, and based upon my experience, is their quality department is really, really top notch.
Well, and Ed and Adam, one of the things, because I get to be out meeting these awesome independent health food store owners, that's what I do when I go into a store to buy something like that. I look at the person because they've owned the store for 30 years and they'll immediately go, this is why I carry this brand, because it produces the results that you want.
Right.
Well, that's one thing. It's supply chain quality, and then it's also the results that people get. I think, unfortunately, based upon, again, I'm going back to the meeting I went to recently. I'm a neophyte in this space, so I'm like the little kid going, "A cookie," right? But I was astonished at how tricky some of these economic adulterators are in falsifying what a good lab would even say. Oh, this is black cohosh, but in fact, it's not.
Yeah.
Wow. So I've got an off-the-wall question for you. Okay. So Adam and I are sitting here in the heart of Oklahoma City, just west of the Capitol. And I know that these plants, these botanicals, grow all over the United States. Are there actually people even in Oklahoma that wildcraft and harvest herbs and actually supplement their living picking things like that?
Yes.
And
really,
and typically, is that a generational thing, or has there been some kind of explosion in the cottage industry for those that just kind of want to get back to nature and figure out a way to make a living? I mean, I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, I want to go pad my pocketbook a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it comes from both, Josh. I'd say the majority of it is generational. It's passed down through the family, like it has been in my family. I think I may have told the story about when I was young and I had pleurisy.
Yeah, the pleurisy root in your grandma.
Yeah.
She brought it into her. She made a poultice. I put it on my side. I woke up the next morning and I was 9 or 10 years old. all I could know was I didn't have any pain anymore. I could go play. So that
Amazing.
that's my brain. But most of it is passed down through the generation. Although the younger generation, some of those are desiring to be more, live off the land,
Right.
go off the grid. So they're learning that. As a matter of fact, we're having a training session next month of newcomers, I would say, new people that want to learn more about how to be self-sufficient. So it's a trend in both ways.
Is that class full?
Yes, it is.
It sounds like I'm sitting here watching you walk around out there in that
we want to
natural
go.
beauty, and it's like, hey, we could do a cool show from out there and highlight your class and how you're teaching new generations these awesome things that you've learned in your family. I was going to ask, what else do you actually have out there so that we have to make you show it to us again on the next broadcast?
Yeah, we've got a lot of different species here. American ginseng out here.
Oh, let's do American
do
ginseng.
It. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's got a good history.
That's got a very good story to it.
Nice.
That'll be the next.
Well, Ed, thanks for joining us again. This has been Ultra Life Today with Ed Fletcher, and I'm Adam Payne, and Josh Bellews right here next to me.
Yes, indeed.
Thanks for joining us.
We appreciate it, Ed.
Yep, take care.
You're welcome. Enjoyed it.